Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for the next session of our Startup Spotlight series. My name is Anna, I'll be your producer for this session. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to review our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you all so much for joining.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today. My name is Bridget, and I lead product and go-to-market at Howso. Joining me today are my colleagues, Martin and Matthew. So Martin is a principal software developer. He will be doing the demo today. And Matthew is a senior full stack engineer at Howso, and he's helped us prepare the demo and is here to answer any questions that people might have. So with that, let's hop over, Martin, who's driving the slides, to look at our agenda. So today, what I hope to show you is a Howso tech and stack overview. So I'll have a few slides. Hopefully those are very quick. And then we can get into the real meat of it with the demo, where Martin's going to show you how we can integrate Howso with the Microsoft ecosystem to provide explainable AI insights for a retail data set. Please feel free to share your questions throughout the session in the chats, but we'll also leave a bit of time at the end for questions if there are any. So Martin, you can hop to the next slide. So I wanted to just start here with a very quick Howso summary. Howso was founded in 2017 as an explainable AI company. We did our Series A in 2022. We're a team of about 12 people, and we're headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina. As I mentioned, Howso's technology is explainable AI. So as we'll show, every insight that we generate can be routed directly back to the data. And we're able to back up that tool and capability with 60 plus patents. And what this allows us to do is provide our enterprise customers with AI that is transparent and trustworthy and fully secure all the way back to the data itself. Next slide, Martin. So I wanted to first root us all in a little bit about the algorithm and our technology and what we're doing here. So Howso, you can think of us as an instance-based learning algorithm or a supercharged KNN. But essentially what we do is sit on top of the data, and we can make inferences directly from the data itself by a complex but performant mapping system where we understand the relationships between all of the different data points and can use those relationships to make inferences as well as do a number of different types of ML workflows on the data. And what this allows us to do is always trace back to the source data, no matter what capability or insight that we are generating for our customers. We work right now with structured and semi-structured data, and we've started to move into unstructured text. But we can work very performantly, so that's how we're a little bit different from our or from other KNN algorithms or instance-based learning algorithms that you've heard of in the past. And we can scale up to billions of rows and thousands of features. So we're a very performant algorithm, as we'll show here, hopefully in the demo. In the next slide, I wanted to just talk about what that algorithm allows us to do capability-wise. And we like to categorize it into 3 different types of categories, even though I'm kind of showing 5 tabs here. So I'll walk you through those. So the first thing that we think of is using Howso as a data readiness and usability tool. So this is essentially helping customers answer the question, is my data actually ready for AI? Do my agents and LLMs have the context that they need and the full insight into their data that they need in order to do their jobs effectively? So here we're able to go through, we're able to tell customers whether their data has any signal, if there are any anomalies that they should be aware of, if there's any missing information that the data contains that needs to be filled out, if the joins and relationships are mapped correctly. And we can put together essentially another piece of context for the LLM and agent that it can then use to go and query the data and get effective responses. Again, all traceable back to the data itself. So we know that the information that the LLM is given is directly based on the data. The next set of capabilities here, anomaly detection, causal discovery, and what-if scenario analysis, are part of what we call our Howso Insights capabilities, which are our predictive and prescriptive insights. With these, we have a number of different tools. We go from everything from just basic ML inference with full explainability back down to the data to being able to do discover, predict, act workflows for proactive and reactive insights into your data. Today in our demo, we're going to be working with causal discovery and what if and generating insights for a retail data set to help the retailer improve the revenue that they're generating from their online web pages. Finally, our last capability is what we call privacy accelerators. So our algorithm allows us to uniquely be able to create synthetic data that is totally private and fully statistically accurate back to the real data. Along with that, we have validation capabilities that provide the opportunity to look at the quality and the utility of different data sets. And with that, we have a watermarking capability, which embeds a digital fingerprint into data sets so that you can track their lineage for governance purposes. So in the next slide, this is where Howso sits in the data and AI stack. So like I've been saying, Howso sits directly on the data, wherever the data is located. Here for this demo, we'll be working in Azure and Fabric specifically. Howso sits on top. We'll be generating insights. Martin will show you how that works today. And then once those insights are generated by Howso, they can be published pretty much wherever you want, from just LLMs as context, within agents as context, within different business applications like Power BI reports. And today, we're going to be experiencing Howso through all three of our mechanisms, from chat to the application and the notebook experience. So the final slide that I will leave you with are some of the use cases for different types of personas. This is really a developer-focused session, so we'll be focusing more on notebooks and the chat experience with the notebooks, where we're using it to generate insights like causal discovery and what-if scenario analysis for data engineers and data scientists. But really, those pair really well with our business user applications, where we can put essentially a chat interface in front of the insights that are generated by data engineers and data scientists, and allow the business users to query those insights and understand what insights they're trying to get and get predictive and prescriptive recommendations. So with that, hopefully that gives you a grounding in what Howso does and what Martin's going to show you today. And I'm going to turn it over to Martin to begin the demo.
Greetings. We're going to start the demo today in Power BI. I think many of you will be familiar with that. And in Power BI, we've set up our own workspace for Howso Enterprise. And this includes our data. We've ingested our data into the Lakehouse. We've also set up an agent, which we'll show you some of in a moment, and then we'll show you more later. We've set up a dashboard. Again, we'll show you that later, and a number of other things that we need to support some of these items. But nothing out of the ordinary. This is how you use BI. So as I mentioned, we built an agent. Now, this is all text. It's not difficult to write or to understand. I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but I just want you to know that an agent exists and what form it takes. This sits on top of the existing Fabric notebook skill or agent, and brings in additional skills via our skill here to know how to work with the Howso ecosystem. And again, this is text-based. It's not difficult to read or understand. And there are just basically references to how to use each of the tools many of the tools that we have. We don't have all of them here because they're not relevant to this task at hand. but they could be, and eventually we would probably have a whole library of these skills. So how would we use these skills? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use these in a notebook environment. So here you can see we have a standard VS Code window running a notebook, and it's a very simple data structure, nothing interesting. And I have my chatbot over here configured to use the skills that we've created and the agents that we've created. And I've also set to an Anthropic model. And so I'm going to, I have this data that's already in my lakehouse, and I want to understand things that I want to know about it, like how can we use the information that's available inside that data. So I'm going to ask the LLM to do this for me. Now, I would like to remind you, this is a live demo. And we know also that Anthropic has recently launched a new exciting model. And we did notice a few hiccups along the way. So we may have to retry some things along the way. But if it gets to a point where I can't get the right output in a timely fashion, I'll switch to a pre-built notebook.
So Martin, while that's working, why don't you tell us about the use case and what we're trying to do here in this notebook, and a little bit about the data too.
Yeah, so this data is from a retailer who does retail online, of course, and they are looking for information within their data that they've already collected about whether or not they can drive more revenue from the web visitors that come to their website. And so we're going to look at the data and see if we can identify any causal drivers that would point to generating more revenue. We usually start with Howso of looking at your data to understand, is there any signal amongst the noise? If there is signal, does it provide predictability of one feature over other features or vice versa? And once we've established that, then we can move forward with identifying the causal drivers. This looks like it is working, and we will hopefully see some notebook cells appear in a few moments.
Yep, so this is just a data set that mimics a lot of use cases that we see with some of our customers where they're retailers and they're trying to learn something about their customer base. They have a data set. They don't always know what to do with it, nor do they always have the skills to be able to go and interrogate the data that they're often wanting to interrogate. And so here, hopefully, what we'll show you is how we work with our customers to use new tools like LLMs and skills to be able to use Howso to generate insights fairly easily that can help them learn more about their shoppers so that they can increase their sales. And in this data set specifically, what we'll see is that there's a particular feature here that's really going to be driving revenue that we'll want to interrogate further. Oftentimes in the real world, there are a number of different features. We've tried to simplify this a little bit for this demo so we can keep it very clean. But Howso has a number of different capabilities that let you deep dive into a lot of different business questions. Hopefully in a pretty straightforward manner using the LLM interface that we're seeing here. So Martin, it looks like it's doing some stuff.
It is, and I noticed right away that it was trying to read the table from a file. Our table is not in a file, it is in the lakehouse. So I just made a slight adjustment here to make sure that it can get the data from the right place. So I'm going to wait for it to complete all the cells, and then we will run them.
And as you can see, the LLM is usually pretty good at getting the high level correct. And but Martin still is having to make a few adjustments based on, things that he's seen
Yeah,
before.
this one here, actually, this one, it would have worked the way it was, but I changed it to do 2 data frame because VS Code does a really good job of presenting tabular data in a data frame. So I just wanted to make that look prettier on screen when we run it. That wasn't a big deal. Otherwise, we would have seen a JSON blob that maybe people would squint their eyes at. So it looks like we've loaded all the cells. Let me make sure that one's run, and then we'll just accept all of these. Well, I'm just going to do this. And then let's go. So the first cell, as we mentioned, is going to be loading the data from the Fabric Lakehouse. We should expect to see a sample of that data via dfed at the bottom. Yeah, here we go. So we do see a sample of that data. That tells us that it did load the data correctly. It also gives us an idea of the size. It's about 12,000 rows and 18 columns. So that's great. Now we're running the infer feature attribute step, and it looks like this is going to be just fine too. So what is happening here is we scan the data using our tool infer feature attributes, which the LLM correctly used. And this tells us things about the data, but we do this in an interactive fashion with the data scientist using the tool because we want to make sure that things that they know are captured in the feature attributes before we pass that into our insights engine. So for example, you might have, and I don't see any examples of this here, but oftentimes you'll have like employee ID or something in your data, and it's just a string of digits. So to the uninitiated, it might just look like a continuous integer field, when in fact those integers mean something. It means this employee or that employee, so they have to be set to nominal, and we treat them then accordingly inside of Howso Insights. So that went just fine. I don't think I need to make any changes. If I did need to make changes, we have tools to make that really easy to just make little snipe edits as necessary. So now we have ingested our data and those feature attributes into Howso Insights, and we created an Insights object from that. And with that object, we can start looking at things like the feature predictability. So very simply, we just call get predictability, we display it. If you're a numbers guy, you might want to go look and compare numbers about what predicts what, but we can also look in these plots. So when we compare predictability, we have to group the features into 2 different types, continuous or nominal, because they use different metrics to determine their predictability. So here we have all the continuous features, which are useful. And down below, we have all of the nominal features. Now, revenue is the one we're going to be interested in. And just to be clear, revenue in this case is not continuous. It is a nominal because it's basically just true or false. This column here will record whether or not the web visit that came into the website generated revenue or not. True being revenue generated, false being not. So that's great. And it's one of the more predictable features, which is very useful. I guess browser is somehow more predictable, not sure why, but revenue is very predictable. So now we go down to the causal analysis, which happened to be just running while I was scrolling down here. Again, if you're a numbers guy, you might want to look at some of this stuff, but we've also made a nice chart with a directed graph showing the causal relationships or lack thereof that we found in your data. And in this case, we had, looks like 5 pairs of relationships. This one has very little information. This is very bright red because we detected that it's missing information. And with more information, it can probably do a better job of either being predicted by the month or predicting the month. But right now, we don't really know. And we can see that there's some others that have a directionality to them, which is great. This one here is kind of really intuitive, that we can establish that the bounce rates themselves are very strongly caused by whether or not the user exits. And I think that should be intuitive to anybody who's familiar with web traffic. So this as a layperson, this would give me comfort in knowing that the causal relationships that Howso has detected are very real. But the one we're really interested in this is this one down here. This is our revenue. And we noticed that one feature of all the 17 features that really stood out was the personalization score. Now, the personalization score in this data set is a percentage from 0 to 1, which ranks how much that web visit was personalized for that individual. And we see that there's a relationship here, and we want to explore what is it telling us. So I'm going to ask for more help from the LLM, and I'm going to paste in a new query where I'm basically just saying, hey, I noticed that the personalization score is causally influencing our revenue. Let's dive into those drivers and see if there's anything affecting that. So maybe there are other features which are, causing the personalization score to change, or maybe there's even more subtle features that would affect revenue. When we want to see all that, we don't want to see the top, because we are focused on revenue. So we want to have a clearer picture there. So let's see if the LLM is going to do this for us.
So maybe, Martin, while we're waiting here for this to run, and as long as we don't need to restart it, do you want to talk a little bit? Oh, it looks like we might want to try the chat real quick before we.
I'm gonna rerun the same query again. As Bridget mentioned, it looked like it might have hung up, and maybe it didn't. Maybe it was just queued and wasn't responding. But we know that we have a live audience here and want this to be prompt. Okay, it looks like it's moving forward faster.
Yeah, so while this is running, Martin, do you want to chat a little bit about how you think about building skills for Howso and maybe for other tools?
Do I want to talk about that? Sure, I would have to change the screen. I'm not so sure that, well, so we have a lot of different skills, as Bridget showed in our preamble. We have a lot of different things that we can do with the Howso engine and technology stack. And many of them are very easily converted into agent skills. And we are writing our documentation and and just in general, we're publishing skills, and we are also writing our documentation to support skills. And this makes it really easy for developers who don't really want to dive into Python to use our technology stack to get great means. Like this particular demo I'm showing here doesn't require me to write in Python. I just have to allow it to show up in this notebook. Yeah, I don't know what else to say there's to say about that. I mean, this whole space is changing so rapidly, and we are trying to do our best to stay on top of it with the right skills at the right time in the right places. And we publish them as we go.
Thanks, Martin.
And I think it might be hung up again. I'm gonna kick it off again. Yeah, I just don't want to switch back to the other screen because I think it's a contextual switch. But and also I want to watch this and monitor it. But yeah, I hope that addresses your prompt, Bridget. Some of the other skills that we have that we didn't maybe talk about is we are, and it's an area more dear to my heart, is we do a lot of synthetic data. So we do have skills for generating synthetic data. We have skills for generating relational synthetic data, and for processing that. So we can generate synthetic data, or we can accept existing data and make synthetic copies of them, both relationally and in static tables. And we have skills to do those things. So yeah, I think it's stuck again. I'm gonna stop it again.
So maybe we try one more time, Martin, and then just for the sake of time and moving on, we can keep going.
Matt just informed me that Pod is having errors their status page.
Yeah. Looks like
Probably
the demo
because
gods
they
are
just-
not working in our favor at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give this a minute, and if it doesn't continue, I'm just going to switch over to our already completed notebook, which we had exactly for this reason. Yeah, I'm not going to wait anymore. Okay, so let me just scroll down to where we were, and it might be slightly different because the LLM does things slightly different from time to time. But okay, yeah, we were here. We also had 5 relationship pairs, which is great, and this is the one we wanted to drill into. We also have some of the other ones that we've seen, which is good. And then we were zooming in and to look in more detail. So what we're doing here in this stanza of code is we're basically just making sure that we have enough depth to the relationship so that we can see branches, like going a level deeper. So we know that operating system affects, might drive your browser, and that your browser would then have a minimal effect on your revenue. I don't know why. So this is a multi-level relational or causal relationship, which is great. And then also I've expanded out I've loosened up the filter, if you will, so that we can see more or I guess less subtle or more subtle relational drivers to revenue. So we see that special days are probably things like sales or maybe national holidays, and those might impact revenue either because we had a sale on the day or maybe because people aren't at work or they're at home. So maybe they spend more time shopping. I don't know. But again, the one that we're really interested in is the one that has the highest relation to revenue, which is the personalization score.
So maybe to emphasize there, Martin, before we move on,
Sure.
What we've done so far is literally just ingest the data into Howso, and then Martin's really not run a lot of code to be able to generate the insights that we have so far. So we're not building complex models under the hood. You're not having to build a machine learning model for every single insight that you're trying to generate. Because of the special algorithm that we have, we're able to map all of these relationships. And with just a couple of lines of code, like Martin, do you want to scroll up a little bit to show how easy this generally is? We can go through and make comparison plots like this to answer a fairly complex question of what's driving revenue or purchases that are actually leading to revenue versus interactions that aren't leading to revenue. So just wanted to highlight there that I know we got hung up on the LLM experience, but it's really like fairly straightforward code that it's trying to generate, and Howso's just doing all of this under the hood.
Yeah, and I should have drawn out that this diagram here is where we saw no revenue. So the impact here with the personalization score and this browser was these are the highest drivers for when revenue is false, so there's no purchase made. And so probably the relationship, and I'm speculating, is that they bounce, right? So we saw earlier that there was these bounce rates that were also affecting things. This side over here is more about whether or not a purchase was made. And here we see the strong relationship with the personalization score. And it wasn't so important over here. It's still the most important thing over here, but it's not as strong because they probably bounced before they did anything. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that. So now that we know that personalization score is the key driver in this data set for revenue, let's dig in a little bit more on that. So what we're doing here is we're going to look at the scores of people who did make purchases during their web experience at the retailer. I'm just going to shut this. We're not using it anymore. We can see that those people who did make purchases have a variety of scores ranging from 0, but mostly not 0, that show that the experience that they had was personalized to them in some way. And we can do the same experiment with people who did not spend any money, or web visits that did not spend any money. And we notice way more significantly, we see that people who did not have any personalized experience were less likely to spend money at the site. So as if I was, working for this retailer, perhaps in marketing, I would make sure that we are personalizing our experiences for our customers, and that's more likely to drive revenue. And we can quantify that. We can do something called what if scenarios and hypotheticals to say, okay, of all the people that didn't spend any money at their site in their visit, what would have the revenue prediction, how would that have changed if we had more personalization for those visits? And you can see here, we're going to just add 5, 10, or 15% more personalization, and what that's going to do to our final revenue prediction. And we can see that at each step, we see a marked increase in the prediction of revenue. So this is really valuable as a retailer, and we could probably drill into more things, but this is what we plan to show you today. Bridget, do you want me to go into the dashboard?
I think you can head there. I think I was just going to say, Martin, do you want to chat a little bit about, like, you were able to do 3 what if scenario analyses with those few lines of code. Like, what is Howso able to do under the hood?
So we can actually do more sophisticated what if scenarios or hypotheticals. So we could do things like break this down by not only increasing the personalization score, but would it affect men more so than women, or farmers more so than bankers? I don't know. I don't know if those fields were in the data, but if they were, we could experiment with things like that, and we can certainly also do more than just a 5, 10, 15 hypothetical on the personalization score. We could make that more granular. We could add more notches, if you will. We could actually, if we saw in this chart up here, we saw that the personalization kind of peaks here, where we get, of course, if we're a retailer and it costs us next to nothing to do the personalization, then we would go all the way up here and collect all of this, extra revenue driver. But there is a peak here, and it's kind of interesting, maybe to explore that. We could do that, and it wouldn't be very different than what we've already done. I don't know. It's kind of up to the whim of the company and the marketer what they want to explore in their data, but we give them the tools to do it.
Yep, and there's no complex model building or anything to answer these questions. We can perturb the data directly to play out these different what if scenario analyses based off of the relationships that we found earlier.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
Normally when I'm running this and we're not in pre-built mode, I would have a bit down at the bottom that publishes these results of our predictability, of our causal, of our hypotheticals, etc., back up into the lakehouse. And we already have those results there, so I can move on to here. So I mentioned...
Martin, do you mind if I just hop in
No,
here? So I just wanted to pause and give us some context about where we were at. So what Martin's just shown you, and would have liked to have shown you with the LLM, and you guess you saw part of it, was more of the developer experience. So usually how our interactions with customers go is that we work with developers to build out Howso insights within a Jupyter Notebook experience or a Python experience. And then the developer works with the business user to pipe those results that were generated into whatever format that they want to see. If you recall that stack that I showed earlier, once we've generated the results, we can show them wherever we want. So next, Martin's going to show you a couple of different ways that a business user could interact with the results within the Microsoft ecosystem. So he's got a Power BI report here that was generated based off of the results that were piped back into Fabric. And then we'll also show you how you can interact.
And these are interactive.
Copilot.
Yeah. So as Power BI allows, we have interactivity. We can move these around if we want, or we can change to different target features. Now, revenue was the one that we were focused on, but maybe we were focused on bounce rates. And sure enough, exit rates is the most predictable feature for that target. So very useful already to anyone who wants to explore the data but doesn't want to look at code or run a notebook. This data is already available by the developer who did run the notebook. And the other experience is the chat experience. So within Copilot, we have set up, again, using that that stack of agent and skills and the data, we have this agent now for giving us the ability to talk about this particular data set, and or maybe others if we had others in the lakehouse. But let's give it a try. Can you help me understand what is driving revenue on my site? And hopefully Copilot will not give us a problem.
So here, while it's thinking, right now we're using this in the context of a predictive and prescriptive insights workflow and analytics for a business user. So they're trying to understand actually like how can they improve their process of the business or driving revenue. But again, like I talked about earlier, we can also use Howso and generate the insights that we generate and provide context for the LLM to help it improve itself and help it work in an agentic manner. So in a similar manner to what we've done here with the insights, you could generate all of the context that you need the LLM or the agent to have to be able to perform for a specific workflow and pipe it back in, and again give it as context to an agentic workflow, so that it knows that it's referencing the correct data, that data is accurate and not missing any information, that it's aware of any anomalies that might pop up. So there are a lot of different ways that we can provide context to these agentic systems to help in a number of different use cases.
And this seems to be taking longer than usual. So instead of waiting for it, I think what I'm going to do is just jump over to our previous chat where we did do these queries. And that was the exact same query that I just gave Copilot here. And this is the result we got. It is, very contextualized to not only your data, but also to your question, of course, and other things that might be in your own your own context. Like if it knew things that you were working on, it might try to contextualize them there for that as well. And then we asked another question, which is, can you tell me how these causal drivers are determined? And we got this set here where we it shows us a directed causal graph. You've already seen it. How much each feature reduces uncertainty about revenue. Again, mentioned personalization score at the top of the list. And that it's not just a random association, that it is more of a driver, and so forth. So we do feel like this definitely raises the accessibility of the results from Howso, and so we're really pleased that we were able to make such a integration inside of Microsoft Copilot. So I think that concludes the demo portion of our software, but Bridget, did you have any final words?
Yeah, so I was just going to say thank you all for attending. If there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can hang around and ask or answer some questions for a while. But the final thing I wanted to leave you with is that there are a couple of ways that you can get in touch or use Howso. So one, we are on the Microsoft Marketplace, so you can interact with us there. We also have an open source setting or tool on GitHub that gives you access to our engine. And then Martin here has put up our Howso website, and there are ways for you to request demos or get in contact with us through the website as well. But thank you all for coming, and I think we can see if there are any questions. But I think it looks pretty quiet overall.
Hi, Bridget. This is Anna, your producer. Does look like we have a pretty quiet chat, but if you'd like, I'm happy to put our survey slide up. We can leave that up for 5 or so minutes, and if anybody has a question, now's the time to ask it. We're happy to bring you back in if somebody does ask something great.
Yep, and I think Anna, it sounds like it's quiet, so maybe just a couple of minutes that we can put it up and then wrap up.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. And thank you for facilitating.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. This session is part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. And we'll see you at the next one.